Hello once again, my spooky angels. It's me, Lord Nicolina, aka Misunderstood Nicolina, and welcome to the second and final Angel Rise Halloween episode for 2024. Before this episode begins, I do have a couple announcements to make. First off, for those who haven't seen my community post I made a few days ago at the time of recording, my personal YouTube channel, Nicholas Todd, is back in operation. Videos involving the sporting events I go to and my cats will be the prominent features on it. I may do a bit more on there in the future, but that's what I'll be doing on there for the time being. As for the second announcement, I can confirm that this episode and the poem video about my Halloween costume will be the last two Halloween videos I have for you all this year. Admittedly, I didn't really have too much planned for the channel for Halloween this year, but I feel the quality of what I have could be more properly shown. Oftentimes, quality is better than quantity. Either way, I do appreciate your understanding and support regardless of what I have in store. And speaking of my Halloween costume, it's time for my yearly tradition of sharing what it is. Only a select few people know about this already, and it's been a long anticipated cosplay I've been wanting to do. So, allow me to introduce my Halloween costume for this year, Splatoween Shiver. Without a shadow of a doubt, out of all the variants of Shiver there is, the Splatoween version of her is my favorite of them all. The red and black is absolutely stunning, along with the makeup. I seriously can't wait to have fun with that. During Splatoween itself, Shiver's skin glows pale while in the dark, which is the route I'm going to try and go for, but at the same time, make it slightly more creepy. You'll see what I mean when I share photos of it. Regardless, the hype for this is through the roof for me. With that being said, let's get into the treat bag once again and dive into the second part of my Halloween Angel Rise episodes for 2024. Isn't this a curious looking topic? Horror itself. While I was a kid, it no question scared the heck out of me. And I've come to embrace the horror genre in almost every aspect nowadays. So in this episode, I feel I should answer the curiosity within the cat, and tell you all how my love for the horror genre has developed over the years. First off, where did this all begin? Well, the answer is quite simple. Thank my sisters. For those who are not familiar with them, my sisters were the reason I got into face paint, more specifically through their Halloween costumes. It started in 2008, when the older of my two sisters intended to dress up as a vampire, but in retrospect, looks more like a zombie with the sunken eyes and makeshift blood marks. She would go for a zombie the next year, which honestly, thinking about it now, she dressed up as a zombie 2 years in a row. In my opinion, at least. My younger sister would soon join in on the fun 2 years later, only she went as a goth person. Honestly, nothing wrong with that. And even thinking back to that, it was a partial inspiration to the angel face paint y'all are used to seeing. Plus, she even laid a bit of a scare on me when she revealed her costume to me. The next year is when she took the zombie route. And thinking about it now, it might very well be more scarier than my older sister's zombie makeup. My older sister coincidentally did her makeup that year. 3 years later, my younger sister would do so again, only this time as a zombie from the popular TV series The Walking Dead, which was a show she was strongly interested in at the time. Not sure if my older sister did her makeup that time too, but still, it was all in the cards, as they say. Outside of Halloween costumes, my sisters also took interest in The Nightmare Before Christmas, mainly my older one. And much like I explained in episode 38, it has become a family Christmas tradition where we only watch it once a year. Looking back on this, I wasn't actually too scared of the costumes my sisters donned, though back then, anything horror related I saw, mainly certain parts of movies, were the real things that scared me. Seeing them being into horror, even if it was just a tiny bit, that was enough to have me consider trying the horror genre for myself. And that's where my next point takes us. Starting 9 days before Halloween in 2016, I made drawings of the Mario princesses as zombies. While I didn't draw them to match the costumes my sisters once wore, zombies were the first thing that came to my mind when Halloween popped up. So really, I'm now thinking of those as homages to my sister's interest in the undead. When 2017 rolled around, I started considering other ideas for horror-themed drawings too. That's when the following drawing types started popping up between then and 2020. Nightmare, based on the FNAF 4 animatronics. Phantom, based on the FNAF 3 animatronics. Ghosts, vampires, haunted spirits, witches, like I mentioned in the last episode, jack-o'-lanterns, shadow queens, based on the character of the same name from Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, devils, Panther Pride demons, based on my imagination of a haunted version of my high school, goths, and famous horror movie killers. Yeah, that is a giant list. The sky was the limit for me there. I did some more than others alongside the zombies though. They were vampires, haunted spirits, nightmares, witches, and ghosts. The most notable to me of which were the haunted spirits. Let me tell you, those types of drawings were honestly the scariest ones I've ever done. And the drawing I'm going to share on screen is no doubt a strong example of it. Did I get you there? If so, my apologies. Anyways, there wasn't too much inspiration behind this, other than I felt just a simple ghost wasn't too scary for me. So I thought it would be a good idea to take that idea and multiply it by more than fittingly at least 13 times. I added all black eyes, mouths with pointed teeth, ghostly white skin, and most notably, the blood and scars. Even looking at them these days makes me whimper quite a bit. You could tell I was sparing no details to make these drawings as scary as possible. Eventually I got to making actual ghost drawings, so maybe the haunted spirit drawings could serve more as a sequel to the ghost drawings. That wasn't all from them, however. The creation of those drawings led me to don my first ever horror-themed costume for Halloween in 2017. Yes, every year up until then, I dressed up as something relating to sports or video games. So I decided to take that chance and embrace horror in costume for the first time. The costume was a simple white cloak with cracks that my mother got for me from Walmart, and the face paint I wore was all cream-based compared to the water-based face paints I use today. Looking back on it, it's not as scary as I thought it would have been. If I were to do it today, it would be a lot more weathered, with dusty specks and the scars and lip shape being more thin. Especially since I learned how to blend face paint colors. But that, of course, was just the beginning. The next year, I would do another horror-themed costume. This time, inspired by my Panther Pride demon drawings. And thinking about how I looked back then, I get serious Pennywise vibes. Though this is more meant to be a drawing representation of it, the original photo I took made it look like I was Pennywise. Even then, I am still very proud of how it turned out. The costume was simply my White Panther Pride t-shirt, my PDHS cap, and the same types of face paint as the year prior, along with some fake blood, which was the first time I actually used some. Applying it for the first time did feel like cold water was being put on my face, and even some of it did drip off, but I managed it quite well by applying some of it to my shirt. In my opinion, this felt that much more scarier than the Haunted Spirit costume I did the year prior. I think it had a lot more character and a theming to it, considering my love for PDHS and my increasing love for horror. Definitely one of my favorite Halloween costumes now, looking back on it. The next big development in my love for horror came on 2 occasions in 2020. EAS scenarios in April, and the creation of Nick Helena in June. I have done episodes on both of these before. I'll link them in the description below in case you want to see them. For the EAS scenarios, I first discovered them through the scenario EF6, made by MC Chap with a 4, originally known as Studio Q. The scenario depicts an extremely violent tornado targeting the Dallas-Fort Worth metropolitan area. The damage caused, as said in the scenario, is compared to a nuclear bomb going off in the city, or the city never being built at all, hence it being called an EF6 tornado compared to an EF5. The part where said tornado is revealed is the part that gets me the most. Especially the winds of it getting closer to the TV station and soon knocking it offline. Gives me the chills a little bit thinking about it now. Afterwards, that's when I found out that this was far from the only EAS scenario video out there. There have been ones made also based on other tornadoes, along with nuclear warfare, demons, zombies, and even mutating viruses. The most notable ones of which I enjoy include Cataclysmic Annihilation by SBC Hermitage 1258, Malevolence, and the Undead Prevalation Remastered by the Cat 627, The Entities by Scorpion Punch Productions, which scared the absolute living crap out of me, The Infection by Dew Point 8900, and It the EAS scenario by Electric Fanatic and EAS New York. The atmosphere and creativity behind these videos is quite vast, and even though some have better quality than others, they've honestly not only expanded what I can expect to see in horror, but also helped me to understand emergency alerts as a whole, even the one here in Canada, called Alert Ready. Admittedly, that does creep me out a little bit whenever it pops up on TV, but my understanding is clear as day. Even I create my own scenarios in my head, just not only for the fun of it, but to see what creeps me out more within the previously mentioned topics. I've freaked myself out quite a few times, but again, I'm not afraid to scare myself every once in a while. As for Nick Halloween, I created him 2 months after I got into EAS scenarios. More specifically, on June 11th, 2020. I simply created him at first to serve as Nick Halloween's evil clone, wielding a cleaver like the weapons of famous horror movie killers Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. My earliest drawings of him made him a ruthless monster just like them, to actually the point of him being a cliché horror villain. Over time though, as through what I have portrayed in various videos, I gave him fangs and claws, made him a cannibalistic demon, and biggest of all, made him the representation of my anger and darkest thoughts, especially relating to physical harm. Like I mentioned before, I felt like Nick Halloween was becoming just basically another generic serial killer. I wanted to tie his story to Nick Halloween, much like a Heaven and Hell type scenario. That's where the names of the Blue and White Kingdom of Heaven and Dark Blue Kingdom of Hell come from. The story being portrayed in both my 2020 and 2021 Halloween comics speaks to how I shouldn't ignore such intrusive thoughts and get them out in a way that doesn't harm anyone. Also, they persuaded me to understand that not everything in the world is perfect, yet to stay on course to how I feel. Nick Halloween's creation also inspired me to create sisters of his own like Nick Halloween does in May and July of 2021 respectively. They are Nick Hell Daisy, storybook name Phoenix, and Nick Hell Peach, storybook name Viper. Nick Hell Daisy wields Hellfire, a type of fire I've portrayed as turning people into ashes within seconds of contact, inspired by the term, light the fire inside of you. She represents the arrogance and self-centered boastfulness I feel I sometimes show. Nick Hell Peach has venom as his weapon, ending people's lives in less than 5 minutes of biting them. Inspired by my love for snakes and the term, anger is a poison. She represents the inconsideration and manipulation I also feel I sometimes give off. The poem videos I made about them, which include Nobody Wins, Only Me, and Poisoned Mind, describe the feelings quite well, and also do serve as a message to those who watch them to be mindful of how outside influences can be detrimental to someone's mental well-being, alongside the Nick Halloween poems. And that in my universe, those who act like sinners are destined for the Dark Blue Kingdom. Speaking of which, all 3 of the Dark Blue Demon Sisters have specific roles for their powers, which is a new feature I added for them last year. Nick Hell Peach takes charge of the low-risk sinners, by forcing them into manual labor and then biting them to kill them once they prove to be of no more use, Nick Halina seeks out the medium-risk sinners by torturing them with his knife and claws until they confess or bleed out. And Nick Haldaisy goes with the high-risk sinners, immediately executing them with this hellfire, though from time to time, roles are shared. Using horror to represent my darkest feelings has honestly been pretty rewarding for me. Though every now and then, I use Nick Halina and his sisters, every time I think of a certain extreme negative emotion that people have, I can link it to any one of them and imagine what the OC in question could do. And while I still struggle with my emotions sometimes, as long as I have the Dark Blue Demon sisters, there's always a reason to express what negativity overpowers my mind creatively. For the last development in my love for horror I would like to discuss, and this is the most recent one, is my Splatoon playstyle, which I did express a tiny bit in the last episode. In more context, my playstyle is quite aggressive. I use my Big Swig Roller Express and swing it quickly whenever there's a spot that's already been painted by the opponent or unpainted, which paints a lot of turf in the span of a few seconds. Which also leads me to the strategic side of the way I battle. Based on whether to engage an opponent or not, and which spots I should paint depending on how much time is left. Now you're probably wondering, what does that have to do with my love for horror? It goes back to a very specific Splatfest on the weekend of my mother's birthday in 2023. It was the Ice Cream Splatfest, vanilla versus strawberry versus mint chip. At the start of it, I was almost getting the lights knocked out of me by Team Strawberry, and admittedly, I was getting super frustrated. I still did pretty well though, getting a few 10x battle wins in there. The Saturday is where things came to a head. I ended up losing to Team Strawberry in a 100x battle, and I shouted how pathetic I thought they were. I really felt like they were being pests to me. After another loss, that's when I went from being pissed to laughing like a vintage horror villain. Team Strawberry drove me to absolute madness by then. And in my state of maniacal laughter, I went on a streak of 9 wins in 10 battles, which would end up as 10 wins in 12 battles. Fueled by pure adrenaline and insanity. My teammates, and I especially, didn't let up one bit. I did eventually settle down, but let me tell you, that was one of my most memorable memories playing Splatoon. And it stuck with me throughout the rest of the first half of the Splatfest. So much, in fact, I decided on playing a scary song to accompany how I played in the second half and to remember the insanity I went through. That being a FNAF fan song titled It's Me by Tryhard Ninja. A trend which I would continue with other horror-themed songs in future Splatfests. For that Splatfest, I listened to it the rest of the way. Even when I won my first ever 100x battle. Though it was against Mint Chip and not Strawberry, it was still a massive success to me. Even then, from what I can remember, my play did improve quite a bit against Team Strawberry in that span too. My team, Team Vanilla, did end up winning the Splatfest in the end, and Strawberry ended up with no points at all. Yet I did feel sympathetic for Kestrel and Ira, along with another online friend of theirs, who were part of the team, but I didn't face them. Honestly, y'all know I can't feel bad for those three, but for the rest of Team Strawberry, I can say otherwise. It felt like I became a legit serial killer in the second half of the Splatfest after my laughing fit. I felt unstoppable. I was realizing my true strength when it came to Splatfests and Splatoon Turf War in general. My aggressive nature became apparent, and while my strategic nature took its time to catch up too, it soon appeared as well. I started getting double kills more often, I started using my vertical swings on opponents more often as well, which fittingly for Solakeen's character, I called the Tomahawk, increased exponentially the amount of turf I painted, and even started getting triple kills. Though they are pretty rare when I play regardless. As for Solakeen's character, I translated my playstyle into him. Being a cute, loving inkling girl in the streets, but a serial killer-like figure in Turf War. And remember that rabid dog term that Kestrel used as Xena while we roleplayed in episode 41? I've taken that to heart quite well too. Especially one time when I saw a player during the end of the World Splatfest last May named Sit Down. My response to that? Don't tell me to sit down and be a good girl! I knew very well how dangerous in game I had become up to that point, and I went on a similar streak of wins like that in the Ice Cream Splatfest after that. It pretty much solidified the rabid dog persona I had taken on in Splatoon and added to Solakeen. In terms of the laughing fit I had, it carried over into various other Splatfests. And also whenever I listened to horror music, more specifically to Thriller and God of Thunder. Plus, even thinking about my Splatoween Shiver costume makes me go maniacal at times. So overall, while Splatoon isn't necessarily a scary game, the atmosphere I bring, I feel makes it scary, and with funny commentary to go along with it. Anytime you hear me laugh maniacally, it's either I'm causing chaos in game, or simply seeing funny moments play in front of my eyes. While at heart, I'm a very good person and a happy one who has a feel for comedy and lighthearted moments. When you put horror at the forefront towards me, there's a great chance I'll capitalize on it and make you see that my variety has no bounds whatsoever. But really it came down to my sisters. If it weren't for them, this episode would likely never exist. So to my sisters, I do thank you very much for inspiring me to get into the horror genre and to tell the origin story and development of this spooky angel. That's all for episode 45, my spooky angels. Honestly, I've never thought of making an episode like this before I started planning my Halloween videos for this year. But the horror genre has gripped me so much that I had to do so. Not everyone can tolerate this genre, though. Maybe even most people with autism may not like it. Yet, I am sure there are some autistic folk who can tolerate horror like I can. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to leave a like and share this with your loved ones. Spread the word about Angel Rise and the Lord Nicolina YouTube channel. For those of you who are new here and would like to join this journey of mine, then please feel free to subscribe to join the Blue and White Angel Brethren today. Click on the notification bell as well when you subscribe so that you are notified whenever I release new content. And check out my other videos too. Thank you all so much for watching the second and final Halloween-themed Angel Rise episode for 2024. I hope you have a great day or night whenever you are watching this, and I also hope you have a safe and amazing Halloween. Until we meet again, my name is Lord Nicolina, aka Misunderstood Nicolina. Be strong, stay positive, and God bless. Let your inner angel rise, and happy Halloween!